Hi, Sasha. Welcome to Epic Conversations. Really nice having you over here.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Jitin. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sasha. And in fact, we have been discussing about Epic Conversations. This is more about uncovering the stories behind, real reinvention. And what I expect and what we all expect out of it is some raw insights, because as you know that there's a lot of disruption going on. So I thought of maybe starting this conversation, which we talk about the real stories, the real journeys behind, reinvention. And talking about reinvention, I've been following you on LinkedIn and we have both been connected. I see there's a lot of reinvention story, juiced up into your profile. I mean, starting from actuary, then consultant, then strategist, AI builder, board member. I think you have won a lot of hats. So, what is the one thread that connects all of them to you?
I think the common thread behind my career arc, and thank you so much for briefly describing that, is that I like to solve problems where the answer isn't yet clear.
Uh-huh.
Consulting, strategy, building with AI, sitting on boards, the surface and environment keeps changing, but the
Hmm.
job is ultimately still the same. You look at a messy system, you find where the opportunities are and where the real leverage is, and you build something that holds up and that can live even after I leave the room. So it's not about the title, it's not even really about the organization.
Hmm.
It's about what I care about is being able to solve unique problems that
Hmm.
ultimately matter to the world.
That's great. I think it's more when I hear it's more that you have that one internal spark that can fit into multiple surfaces. One internal spark of solving problems, and then again the problem can have multiple surfaces, right? So I think actually, consultant strategies, these are just multiple surfaces towards that bigger internal spark. Yeah.
100%. Yes, well said.
Great. I mean, also, interesting to see that you have spent around 9 years at Empower in one role, but the role itself keeps on, reinventing. And I've seen multiple times that, it's been mentioned in your profile. So, how do you keep your own identity sharp when the job description keeps changing around you?
Yeah, I that's really interesting. So I stopped tying my identity to a specific job description a long time ago. My
Hmm.
title at Empower changed more than once. I've led everything at Empower from PR to university relations to
Hmm.
investor relations to Australia to
Hmm.
government relations to more, traditional corporate
Yeah, yeah,
strategy work.
yeah.
So yes, I wore a lot of different hats, but the
Hmm.
work underneath it was sort of consistent all along.
Okay.
Every version was some flavor or some variation of figure out where the value is, figure
Hmm.
out what needs to be done, and go
Hmm.
ahead and do it. Solve the problem. So whenever the role moves or I adopt a new portfolio, like I don't feel lost. The
Hmm.
role title was never the thing that matters. It's mostly the way I think about a problem. That is what I'm actually like keeping consistent throughout it. And that ultimately I think travels with you no matter where you go.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting because what I also see is that every next episode or every next version is on a built up of the previous version. So it's just like a chain reaction that once you have done this and then you reinvent, you learn, you evolve, and then off you go to the next role, right? And I think that's the beauty of how you actually reinvent. Now that brings me to another question that you sit on the board again. This is a very different question, and I was really wanting to ask this question to you. Apart from strategy and everything, you also sit on the board of Institute of Happiness in Bhutan. I mean, a world away from capital markets and fintech. What does that say about what you actually value versus what your career looks like on paper? I mean, is this something which is a deep passion? Because the subject itself, the Institute of Happiness, is very different from the way your professional journey has been.
Yeah, it's really interesting because on paper, my career is fintech, capital markets, strategy.
Hmm.
That's what jumps out of the CV. But what I've really done is I've chosen to spend a lot of time as well on something that is not really tangible
Hmm.
or that doesn't necessarily like the markets won't price. And
Hmm.
that's really whether people are actually thriving because of the work that you did. For
Hmm.
example, I spent a lot of time in as a management consultant working for the soda industry, Coke, Pepsi, firms
Okay.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
I realized at some point that if I'm doing my job well and helping Pepsi sell more beverages,
Mm-hmm.
I'm ultimately making the world worse off. And so I wanted to do something which it's kind of the opposite. If I do my
Mm-hmm.
job well and help my
Uh-huh.
company grow and thrive, the world is better off for it. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about Empower, for example. The financial machinery behind it was never really the point. It's really the outcome on the other side. At
Mm-hmm.
Empower in particular, that mission of democratizing access to education for bright students from around the
Mm-hmm.
world, that tremendously matters to me. That's what made it easy for me to, wake up early in the morning and get to work and make a difference. The board seat in Bhutan is the same instinct in a different capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, what the Institute of Happiness does is help the Kingdom of Bhutan import best practices from around the world and to
Oh.
export its own best practices, specifically around the gross national happiness index. So the
Oh.
way I think of it is different lenses, same goal of ultimately adding value to society.
If I ask you more about this Institute of Happiness, so what is the particular role that you're actually, or what's your contribution, or how you are contributing to this?
Yeah, so the role ultimately of any board, so to speak, is to be a sounding partner to the leadership and to hold them accountable, help to
Mm-hmm.
set the broad direction of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
One thing with the Institute of Happiness, which has been doing for years now, is
Mm-hmm.
ultimately organizing trips for in the U.S. Ivy League students
Uh-huh.
so they can learn about the gross happiness framework from Bhutanese
Oh.
leaders, meet with leaders of business, society, and government, learn how the country operates, well, therefore, like hopefully partaking in the knowledge and the wisdom of the
Yeah, yeah.
gross national happiness framework, and bringing it back to their own countries when they graduate from their Ivy program and are
Yeah.
hopefully leaders around the world. So I spent a lot of time, for example, organizing these trips, helping put them together, helping with the logistics and payment networks and so
Mm-hmm.
on. That's just one of many things that the institute has run, along with, like, for example, they've run a venture boot camp to help Bhutanese firms and startups tap ideally foreign
Mm-hmm.
networks for capital, expertise, and so on. So there are a lot of initiatives like that, and it's been a tremendous pleasure to have witnessed the organization for all these years.
I mean, that sounds really interesting because you're actually connecting two worlds, and one world experiencing happiness, and the other world experiencing, or maybe the more closer to things like venture capital and all these resources. So that's a good thought. I'm sure you have raised over $1 million and built platforms across borders. At that scale, how much of success comes from strategy and how much from the clarity of the people leading it?
Yeah, I'd say strategy is maybe a quarter or a third of it at the end of the day.
Hmm.
A good plan gets you a PowerPoint deck and a direction.
Hmm.
But some of the transactions, which I've had the privilege to be a small part of at Empower, such as building a $300 million loan
Wow.
securitization or raising over $1 billion of capital, that doesn't close just because the strategy was elegant.
Hmm.
Instead, it closes because the leaders can articulate and sell a compelling narrative. The clarity of the people leading each transaction is what moves a capital raise across the finishing line. Strategy points the way, but people, narrative, and story are the reason that anybody actually follows.
I mean, that's a very beautiful point. In fact, in my own experience of creating strategies, what I realize is the efficiency and the efficacy of any strategy is as good as people leading it. I mean, if people are not clear, then strategy just remains to be a deck. It just remains to be a presentation.
Correct.
Whereas if strategy is a little, I mean, so I won't term strategy good or a bad. Strategy is a strategy, but even if the effectiveness of it largely depends upon how clear the leadership is, and not only leadership, I believe the way they communicate to their respective teams, and how the teams basically execute basis the clarity that they have. I think that matters a lot, and that's true for even for marketing, for finance, for venture capital, for everything. And that's a very good point you have made, Sasha. Uh, One question that is very interesting and deep to me, and a lot of discussion point of lately, and that you are an AI builder yourself. So AI is reshaping every industry you have worked in, right? What does that mean for how professionals build their identity and positioning in the next 5 years before the landscape shifts again?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I'd love to ask you some questions about AI. Lord knows we're all talking about it and thinking about it now. So I have a couple of thoughts. First, the tools are real and they're
Hmm.
not optional anymore.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm a corporate strategist, but I can ship products with Claude Code. A
Hmm.
couple years ago, that would have been unthinkable. So the practical advice is simple: open the tools, start using them. And because the gap between people who do and the people who only talk about AI
It's
is
very.
widening very fast, and that's going to be tremendously obvious. Whether you fine, you've talked to ChatGPT, can you actually build anything with these solutions?
Abs-
Secondly, narrow skills are going to deprecate quickly. So
Mhm.
I don't think any early stage professional should build their identity on a single tool or a task. Instead, one should build their career identity on the kinds of problems they can solve and the
Mhm.
judgment that they employ to bring them to solve those problems. The tools are easy to start. Anyone can talk to ChatGPT right now, but
Yeah.
they're hard to master. And that mastery is all about judgment, experience, and so on. And I think finally, the people who win over the next 5 years are people who can pair real domain knowledge with the
Mhm.
willingness to actually build and ship a product rather than just talk about it. In the
Mhm.
strategy world, that comes from you're not just handing over a PowerPoint deck, you're actually executing on the strategy as well. That combination is rare today, but soon I think it's going to be table stakes. It's going to be the baseline. So I'd advise everybody to get their hands dirty now
Mhm.
while all of what I described in terms of building AI solutions and tools still looks impressive.
The point that you've said about judgment, I think with more and more AI tools, with more and more work around AI, what will differentiate between a good work versus a better work or a best work would entirely be a human judgment. See, I mean, I've also been using AI into various domains, but until and unless the human doesn't apply the judgment, the AI can actually throw hallucinations, and that's where I think. Uh, so uh, a lot of time people ask me that what changes with AI. So what I have to answer them is, now your soft skills are more important, as it's more important than ever, because what can differentiate between a machine doing a job versus a human doing a job is the difference between using your hard skill versus a soft skill, and that's how the evolution is taking place. I mean, I wouldn't mind saying this point, but actually AI is making us more human as we
Interesting,
go
because
ahead.
I kind of feel like the hallucination problem has
Hmm.
by now mostly been solved.
Uh-huh.
Like these tools are only going to get better and better as time goes on. But I
Yeah.
think it's still very clear that does AI actually have the wider context, know the personalities of the people involved, and so on. That is something which will, at the end of the day, require a good amount of human judgment, and that you cannot
Mhm.
just prompt an AI system to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the beauty of technology is that it keeps on evolving, keeps on self-correcting. But that I think that's what my question to all humans are. When technology can self-correct like AI, why can't we as humans reinvent? And that's the whole idea behind Epic, the framework that I've created. And these five pillars are nothing but just marketing concepts, if you ask me, because I'm a marketing guy, 15 years in marketing strategy and all. When we look at these five pillars from a perspective of reinvention, it's actually teaching you how to combine your hard and soft skills together to form something
Right.
formidable. And I think, yeah, I mean, uh, I still remember the time when computer was taking over, and the people who were operating on typewriter, they were very afraid of the change of dynamics. Like, you must have seen that too. And only those people who were able to reinvent, who were able to evolve with time, were the ones who could actually adapt to computers. And I think right now we're in the same position again. And again, the hot topic is AI, but as you rightly said, it's the right time to get your hands dirty on AI tools. Think about it, speak about it, learn about it, and eventually you will actually reinvent yourself into using it much more conveniently.
I'd love to ask you about that actually, because I know that Epic starts from within,
Hmm.
but most real life performers, admittedly myself
Hmm.
included, are wired to sort of act first, but then reflect later.
Hmm.
So within Epic, how do you get someone like that to sort of slow down enough, maybe take a pause, and to do the inner work required?
Well, Sasha, Epic actually does not ask you to stop or pause. I mean, because if everybody of us would stop and pause, the anxiety will keep on happening, right? In fact, high performers like you, like a lot of people, they learn a lot while on the go. So you will do action, and then you will realize, and then you will learn a lot about it. What Epic asks you is to be conscious when you are building. So when high performers are building something, it doesn't say that you stop, you pause. It's just that you should know where your direction is heading towards. And this is very important because, Sasha, in my own career and talking and working both globally as well as locally, I've seen that a lot of high performers, achievers, once they achieve a certain point in their career, and they reach a certain point which they always wanted to reach. After that, they are just figuring it out. That okay,
Mm,
now we have achieved. Now what? Because the thing with high performers is they do not stop. They want to achieve more and more and more. Now,
right.
and that's also true with a lot of people who are navigating change, right? Because fortunately, unfortunately, this whole environment that we're living in is full of external disruptions. And with that, once you consciously think about a direction, or you consciously select a direction, it becomes much more easier. I wouldn't say easier, but I would say it's much more fulfilling to reach your destination. So, just to summarize, high performers do not really need to slow down. Epic is not about the speed of your movement, but yes, Epic is all about when you are moving, are you consciously moving towards a direction you have consciously set? If yes, then fast or slow, it's all your pace. If no, then maybe think over it. So that's what Epic does.
I love that. I love that articulation, especially as you tie it into sort of like personal positioning ultimately at the end of the day. Um, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that because, when we talk about positioning in the fintech and strategy world, positioning usually is about market fit, founder market fit, and so on.
Mhm.
How does personal positioning, like, how is that different? And why do you think that actually matters more?
That's a very good question, Sasha. And we both, being from strategy itself, we know the importance of positioning. And I think the market positioning answers a question: where do I compete? Right? We do a lot of market gap analysis and all these things to finally arrive at what positioning should we take in the market. But the personal positioning asks a very important question: that who I am while I'm competing. So again, they are both a very different perspectives, yet very connected, right?
Hmm.
I've seen, and why is personal positioning very important is because somewhere down the line, be it brands, be it businesses, be it leadership, we all are, impacting somebody, some human ecosystem. When brands operate, they're selling to a customer. Even B2B, B2B is selling to another B2B. People driving these businesses, these brands are all people, human. And the products that which every business produces is for human. So again, till the time and again, brand is it's itself an expression of who is driving that in terms of the customers. So till the time we are not sure about what our strengths are, we are not sure about what the brand stands for, what we stand for, how do we want to cruise through the brand, the market, even if with higher strategy, you won't be able to survive. And that has been the pattern that I've seen in a lot of brands, in a lot of leaders, that when once you operate from the requirement of the market alone, you might produce something which is good the first time or the second time, but it's not sustainable. It's very necessary to link it back to your personal strength. And that's where market positioning versus your personal positioning differentiates. Personal positioning basically defines who I am, what's my strength, and what's that uniqueness that I bring to a particular
Mm,
problem or to a particular situation at hand. While our strategy market positioning is where do we want to operate, and slowly and steadily, the person who's driving this market positioning, he himself, consciously or subconsciously, is operating on his own unique positioning.
got it. So I'm curious, like, how do you demonstrate that? If you're applying for jobs, sending out a CV, is like that to me sounds like the most clearest example of establishing your personal brand, your personal
Mhm.
positioning. But how would you suggest doing that, I guess, within the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very practical question, and fortunately, Epic exactly describes how do you do it. So if you talk about these five pillars, it's not only about introspection, but also once you have introspected enough, once you have arrived at your positioning, how do you actually portray that to the world? Because it's important that our reinvented version or a version 2.0 makes us a product or a person who can actually be commercially applicable also. So again, simple. I think you must have also heard these concepts. It all starts from existence, wherein you apply your strengths, your uniqueness, your values, and also a very important question that who are you subconsciously? What value do you give to people? Because I mean, irrespective of your designation, irrespective of your degrees, irrespective of your professional standing, there is one value that you will eventually be giving or sharing with people around
Mm,
you, which you might not be conscious about. And it happens in plenty. I mean, if you ask your friends, 20 friends, and you say, okay, what do you think I do best? And you'll be surprised to hear the answers, because
mm,
we are so aligned with our conscious thinking that okay, if I am a strategist, I should know marketing. I'm a marketing guy. I'm a brand business guy. That's a conscious learning. But subconsciously, I might be a good mentor. I might be a good educator. But since I have never worked in that, it just does not apply. So again, it starts from existence, and basis that existence, what those strengths or what those skills can you actually use, or can you actually exhibit, that creates a value for you. That's what positioning is all about. Again, similar concept with business, but that's how the perspective is different altogether. Right after positioning, you have to actually create meaningful your identity. Now, identity is not only about logos, names, or symbols. Identity is more behavioral than we actually give leverage to. When you interact with people, when you interact with third person, they will be judging you not by what you say, but also how you behave. So again, creating a behavior that suits on your positioning, as well as creating your mindset around that, is what identity does for you. And then communication. Once you have arrived at EPI, you have to communicate clearly, consistently, and coherently. That's how you spread your message. And the last part is community, because once you are sure you have set up a positioning, the other person sees that positioning in you, and you'll be surprised to see that a lot of people who match your bandwidth will actually come and be a part of that community. So my advice to people who are giving interviews, maybe first timers, or maybe after years of experience, the person who's taking your interview is not really interested about your personal things. What he's interested is, I have a job, my requirement is this, you have shown your requirement to me, but do you fit in that job? And again, that
mm.
fitment is not only degrees or your caliber or technical knowledge. It is also about your mindset, your behavior, how open you are to learning, and that's where you make or break the situation. So
Got
yeah.
it. Now, you also worked with leaders and brands on reinvention. Where does one end and the other begin, or are they always sort of the same kind of problem?
Well, Sasha, if you think much deeper, I think both of these are connected somewhere down the line. So basically, brand is the expression of people leading it, right? Because no brand can take decision by themselves yet. I
Mm.
don't know about AI how it will do, but yet you need people who are running, the brand. And leadership also is a expression of human behavior. I mean, a leadership can actually make the environment very cohesive. They can actually make memorable outcomes out of their decisions, or they can also be someone who can actually cause frictions within the employees, or maybe they can give rise to the culture of toxic behavior. So
Right.
again, so somewhere down the line, they both are very connected towards the human element. And in fact, Sasha, what I've seen as pattern, and a lot of these well-known leaders, if you go back, you look at Steve Jobs. If you go back, you look at Musk, or Satya Nadella. They have not copied any leadership style, or any identity from market. They haven't really they haven't really figured it out that, okay, this is a market gap in leadership, I should do that. They've always operated from their authentic side. Now the
Mm.
pivot is, what value can you actually give from your authentic style that creates your leadership memorable? And that's the entire catch. And that catch you can only, and that pivot you can only make once you know about your own strengths and understanding. So again, reflecting it back and connecting both, leaders, if they're operating from their true strength, they are operating as an authentic self, they are high likely to be a memorable leader, or people who remembers them, right? Same with brand. If suppose Pepsi tomorrow comes up, with a fruit juice, or maybe something, a protein bar, just randomly saying, people might not be able to connect it very, at the very stance, because Pepsi has been known as a soda company,
Right.
right? So but just because that it sees that, okay, there's a huge market in organic protein shakes, or protein bars, let me also, I have so much money, let me also go into it. So again, that's not how it operates. Market gap is important, but what's the strength of an individual, or of a brand, what's their positioning, how they have set their identity, plays a major role when you actually create a strategy out of it.
Makes sense. I'm curious about how reinvention occurs in an AI context, especially with AI now
Yeah.
disrupting careers faster than ever. Is reinvention a skill that people now need to build proactively, or mostly do you see people still just using it in case of a crisis?
Oh, absolutely. I think more than ever, this needs a more proactive approach. I mean, for decades, reinvention was majorly focused, or majorly considered to be a response to a disruption, right? When something goes wrong, you need to reinvent. But with more and more AI coming in, more and more disruptions coming in, and let's not talk only about AI. I mean, let's look at past 20 years. I mean, from 2000 till to 2026, there have been three major disruptions happened in the period of 26 years. First was definitely the emergence of computer, and second was COVID, and now third is this AI thing. Disruption doesn't ask your permission before coming. And fortunately, unfortunately, the more and more people are evolving, the more and more we are globalized, the more and more chances of disruptions are occurring, be it health wise, be it technology wise, be it anything. So reinvention has now actually become a capability. And trust me when I say that, 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, people who have a lot of knowledge might not be so useful as people who can actually adapt, and can reinvent. Because what was applicable 20 years down the line, and when you look at now, the I mean, the situation has evolved tremendously. Earlier, I remember we used to talk about technological shifts in decades. Now and then, I mean, it said every 5 years, but now look at it, every year, we are facing a disruption. And let's not put it as a word disruption, but yes, I think with disruptions come a lot of opportunities also. And again, I will repeat what I've said earlier on, that AI is only making us more human. So yes, there is a need to reinvent proactively. Reinvention does not mean that you have to stop or pause anywhere. And third thing, you can very well reinvent in the position that you're holding in a company, because you owe it to yourself to think about your version 2. You owe it to yourself to think about where do you want to land. I mean, what version do you want to create after maybe 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30 years down the line. And that's how my reinvention journey started, to be honest. It wasn't that, I was in a very comfortable position. I was heading a global company, but then somewhere down the line I wanted, to create my version 2 proactively before, disruptions come into picture. So yeah, that's what my suggestion to everybody is. Don't wait for disruption to shake you out of nowhere. Be ready, be prepared, and treat reinvention as a capability more than a crisis.
Right. Final question for now. For somebody sitting with strong credentials but is feeling a little bit uncertain or unclear about where they actually want to go, what they want to do, what is the one thing that Epic would tell them to do first?
So the very first thing, Sasha, Epic would tell them is uh, uh, try to find out your existence. For these people with strong credentials means strong experience. The journey for you might be much more complicated or might be much more easier. The moment you stop thinking about the next role, the moment you stop thinking about the next promotion, it becomes easier for you to introspect within. and
For
and
sure.
and and trust me, Epic is not saying that okay, you introspect, you realize, and that's the finish. I think that's a beautiful starting point of Epic, because once you have done your own introspection, once you've done then your own existence, and the word existence might look heavy, might sound heavy, but when once you do it, because I've done it myself, so I can say it very confidently. Once you start doing it, you will realize that there's so many things that makes you powerful, and designation is the last of that. Once you introspect, you would not, I mean, you will never realize. When once we are working in a corporate setup, we keep on working the way we are working, but once you just start thinking about you yourself only, I mean, you'll be amazed at what humans can achieve, and
Mhm.
you can achieve out of that. And once you're clear with that, your positioning, identity, communication, and community will actually help you create a version 2 of yourself. So yeah, for the people who are having strong credentials, my thing is, credentials will help you only so far. It will only help you to show the experience that you carry, but your future self will thank you if you focus, if you start with from within, if you start from within, if you put existence into the very core, and then you build around that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Chetan, I think it was a fascinating conversation. Any final thoughts or words for now?
Yeah, Sasha, I think it was a really amazing discussion. A lot, I've learned from you, and a lot of your experience will be very helpful for our audiences also. I just want to say one thing that and again, I will also ask you to maybe conclude what you think of the overall discussion. But before that, I
Mhm.
will like to conclude that reinvention is not a crisis; it's an inside-out strategy. And we both being from the world of strategy, we understand the power of strategy. And brands reinvent, they are very vocal about it, and they're not at all forgiving about it. You see a lot of disruptions happening, jobs being lost, and so forth, things that are just uh, I mean, we haven't seen such kind of vulnerability in the last 10 years, like how, or maybe during COVID it was, but before COVID. But now look at the times, so you can't really be dependent upon one skill set or one employer, or maybe one territory. And it's only for us to create something for ourselves. Nobody will hand that over to you. Till now, reinvention was largely, you get into it, you experience it, and then you come out of it. And a lot of LinkedIn is full of that. Start, and then you will realize. But my question to all of you is, if you got a structure, proper structure of reinvention, of how to start, what to do next, and where do you what to expect out of everything, then the risk becomes much less, and the orientation becomes much stronger, because you're no more swimming in the deep ocean without a without a particular balloon saving you or whatever. You are there with your proper accessories. So that's what I would like to conclude with. What about you, Sasha? What would you conclude this meeting with?
I think the final thought I'd have is the only constant thing in life is change. That goes to what you said for the need for reinvention, the need to be flexible, and the need to make sure that when new skills become available and new tools become available. We talked a lot about AI.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect example whereby the people who will thrive the most are those who can be adaptive to change, learn to use new tools rather than fearing them. And I think that plays in very well to what you just mentioned in terms of the need for reinvention.
Absolutely, Sasha. Thank you so much for your time, and it's been a great discussion altogether. I look forward to keep on following your post, your future reinvention journey, and so on and so forth. Thank you so much, Sasha.
Likewise, Chitin. Thank you so much.